All right, today we're jumping into a short but incredibly powerful ancient text. It's really a raw, unfiltered conversation between a super frustrated prophet and God. And what's wild is that it asks these huge questions thousands of years ago that, let's be honest, we're still asking today. So let's unpack this ancient dialogue and see what it has to say to us right now. You know, the entire book of Habakkuk really hangs on this one massive question, a question we all ask. You look around the world, you see corruption, violence, injustice, and it just feels like the bad guys are getting away with everything. So what do you do with that feeling? Well, that's exactly where our story begins. So let me introduce you to Habakkuk. Now, most other prophets, they speak for God to the people. But Habakkuk, he starts by yelling at God. And this isn't some polite philosophical question. It's a gut-wrenching scream from a man who sees his whole society crumbling and feels totally, completely ignored by the only one who could possibly stop it. What's so fascinating is just how this book starts. It doesn't open with a calm, "Thus saith the Lord." Nope. It opens with a human complaint, a raw accusation. Habakkuk is basically putting God in the hot seat, demanding to know why he's so silent when everything is going so wrong. And he gets specific. He's not being vague here. As you can see, he's talking about the corruption he sees every day, the violence on the streets, the powerful just preying on the weak. The entire justice system is a joke. The law is slacked, he says. It's broken. And he's looking up and saying, God, why are you letting your own people get away with all this? So Habakkuk demands an answer, and boy, does he get one. But it is absolutely 100% not the answer he wanted or expected. In fact, it's pretty terrifying. God's response is basically, oh, you think things are bad now? Buckle up. I'm about to unleash the Babylonians on you. And this is just a stunning plot twist. To solve the problem of injustice inside Judah, God says he's going to use an outside nation that is way, way more ruthless and violent. And God does not sugarcoat his description of them. He paints this picture of a relentless, aggressive force, a bitter and hasty nation just marching across the land, taking whatever they want. And the imagery just keeps getting more and more intense. Their cavalry? It's faster than the quickest predator out there, just an unstoppable force of nature built for speed and conquest. So they're not just fast, the text describes them as ferocious, like a pack of wolves hunting at dusk, hungry, merciless, and absolutely terrifying. Yeah, this is God's solution, and you can imagine for Habakkuk, this just makes the problem 1,000 times worse. So Habakkuk is just left reeling, completely stunned. His first question was, God, why do you let bad things happen? But now he has a second, much deeper question. How can you, a good God, use pure evil to accomplish your plans? He needs a better answer, and that forces him to dig in and ask an even harder question. And this, right here, this is the theological heart of the entire book. Habakkuk basically says, wait a minute, God, I know who you are. You're holy. You can't even stand to look at evil. So how can you just stand by silently while the Babylonians, who are so much more wicked than we are, just swallow us whole? It's a really profound and honest challenge. But instead of just launching into another complaint, Habakkuk does something different this time. He decides to act like a watchman on a city wall. He climbs up a tower, and he's determined to wait, to watch, and to listen for God's real response. It's this posture of defiant, expectant faith. He's not giving up, he's digging in for clarity. And God answers him a second time, but this time it's not a quick, shocking reveal. It's a long-term vision, and inside that vision is a principle that is going to echo through all of history. Okay, so before we get to the famous line, we have to understand what it means right here, in this moment. Living by faith isn't just wishful thinking. For Habakkuk, it's about holding on tight to the truth of God's goodness and justice, even when all the evidence around him seems to scream the opposite. It's about trusting the who of God when you can't possibly understand the what of his actions. So here's the crucial point. The proud, arrogant Babylonian Empire, they rely on their own strength, and that is ultimately going to fail them. But the righteous person, the one trying to do right, they will survive this crisis by holding fast to their trust in God. It's the anchor in the middle of the storm. And God assures Habakkuk that the wicked will not win forever. Part of this vision includes these 5 woes, or judgments. It's like a countdown. Woe to the plunderer, because they're going to get plundered themselves. Woe to the person who builds an empire with violence, because that violence is going to turn right back on them. The message is crystal clear. Their evil will eventually cause their own destruction. Justice is coming, but it's on God's timetable, not ours. So we get to the final chapter, and it's a psalm. It's a song. And it shows that Habakkuk is no longer the man who started this conversation. He hasn't gotten all his questions answered in a neat little bow, but the vision of God's ultimate control has completely transformed him, from a man of bitter complaint to a man of genuine worship. Habakkuk remembers this vision of God's awesome power, pulling from Israel's history like the Exodus. He sees God not as some distant, silent observer, but as an all-powerful warrior on the march. And in this vision, nature itself just convulses in his presence. The mountains, the symbol of permanence, they shatter. The sun and moon actually stop in the sky. This is the God he's been talking to. And this leads to such a fascinating paradox. The vision fills him with this physical, gut-wrenching fear. His whole body is shaking. But, and this is the key, that fear actually leads him to a place of rest. By finally understanding the awesome scale of God's power, he finds the ability to wait patiently for that day of trouble, the Babylonian invasion, because now he trusts that God is in control of it all. And this brings us to the breathtaking climax of the entire book. Habakkuk lays out a scenario of total, complete devastation. Just imagine every single part of the economy failing. The fruit trees are barren, the fields are empty, the livestock are gone. We're talking starvation and ruin. And what's his response? Even if all of that happens, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. His joy is no longer tied to his circumstances. It's sourced in God himself. The book ends with this beautiful image. A hind is a deer, right? And they're known for being incredibly sure-footed on these treacherous rocky cliffs. So Habakkuk is saying that God isn't necessarily going to remove the dangerous path ahead of him, but he will give him the strength and the stability, the right kind of feet to navigate it safely. And so this whole journey from angry complaint to profound joy, it leaves us with this question. Habakkuk's answer was yes. He discovered that even in the absolute darkest of times, when everything is stripped away, a deep trust in God's character could be a source of unshakable strength and even joy. And that's a challenge that feels just as relevant today as it did thousands of years ago.